Hey guys, Larry here. This is Developer's Edge. Nope. Hey guys, Larry here. Welcome back to Designer's Edge. And today, bam, see that? This is the Oculus Quest 2. And this video series, the Devlog, is going to be how I make games. This whole video series is going to be watching over my shoulder as I create my own video games start to finish. The goal here is to just get better as a game designer and game developer, but also to share my process and to put content out there that lets you see how I do it. I being professional, but as an indie, maybe not so much. Let me explain. You see, as a professional game developer, I've mainly focused on being a level designer and a game designer, so all of my experience goes down the design track. So putting together levels, writing stories, coming up with characters, creating challenges, things like that. Great, second nature to me. But you know what's new is when you think about making your own independent games, I'm also going to be responsible for the environment art. I'm also going to be responsible for the visual effects. I'm also going to be responsible for the sound design, for the character art, for the programming. Oh my God. The more I explore, the more I learn, the more I can translate it to my job, the more I can make better games. Yes, I know this is crazy. Who makes whole games by themselves? Actually, a lot of people do. Making games independently has never been easier. Tools are everywhere. The software is cheap or free adjacent. Software is either free, cheap, or subscription based. I think that if you wanted to make your own video games, no matter where you are in your journey of knowledge, now is the time to get started. And to put my money where my mouth is, I'm doing exactly that. And to have fun with this, I didn't want to just stick to what I already know. I would say console or PC game development is my bread and butter. That's where I've spent 95% of my career. But I want a new challenge. The reason why I want a new challenge is I want to be able to go through this experience from the perspective of somebody who has never done it before. And I've actually never done VR development before on my own. I did one group game jam and we actually won the game jam. I was the designer on the project, whoop, whoop, you know. But that was a great experience, but I didn't do any of the engineering. I didn't really do any of the art. I was just responsible for the design. And this time around, the entirety of the game, from start to finish, from napkin idea to final build being submitted, all of it will be me. The value offer here is you're watching a professional video game developer do video game development, but completely on its own. How great is my art gonna be? How great is the sound design gonna be? All those areas where I actually haven't touched professionally, I think there's gonna be a lot of fun. There's gonna be a lot of learnings there that I can share with everybody. And then the stuff that I'm good at, you know, there'll probably be some learnings there too. So why Oculus? Why VR? Well, I think VR is really cool. I think VR is very exciting. And I also think that as a platform, it's still in its infancy. Even though we've been doing it for, I don't know, let's just say 30 years, we're finally at the point where we have consumer grade, widely available VR devices. We have millions of people who have either the PlayStation VR or the Oculus or any type of HTC Vive or any of the other competitors. There's a market there for consumers who want high quality VR content. And as a professional game developer who's already been doing it for the console for all this time, I figured maybe there's a lane of opportunity here where I can bring really cool, small, exciting, engaging VR experiences from my brain into, you know, these headsets. I don't know, I think there's an opportunity. I think if you can be successful in VR, the goal would be small company, small team, very polished product, probably a short experience, sell it for like $5. Like I think that's the success point right now. That may not always be the case, especially as more people adopt VR, especially as more people, you know, get behind VR as developers or as something that they can do as on a daily thing. It still feels very niche right now. And niche, I don't want to use that disrespectfully, but there's millions of people and I'm calling it niche. So imagine when we finally get to the day where VR is mainstream. Now, I will say this. If we're in VR's infancy, I don't necessarily know when we'll reach, you know, critical mass for VR. I'm assuming we'll see that before I'm dead. I don't necessarily know if that's in the next 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years, but I do know that it's going in that direction. I don't think that console/screen gaming is gonna die at that point. Maybe there's gonna be this like kind of hybrid approach for a while, but at some point, I do think that VR is gonna hit critical mass. I simply just want to be ahead of that. For the Devlog series, you're going to get a complete, unfiltered, uninterrupted, unadulterated, no fake, no BS approach to how I'm making my games. You're gonna see my design process. You're gonna see me struggling in code, trying to figure things out. You're gonna see me struggling in Maya, trying to figure out how to do modeling. You're gonna see me learning materials. And the way that I'm gonna format the videos at least is everything that I learned that's valuable that week or that day. I don't actually even know the frequency of these videos, but everything that I learn, of course, I'm gonna summarize and put at the end of the video for everybody. I will put links to the things that I used and the resources. So everything I find out, everything I use, everything I make at some point will be completely available to everybody who's following this series. And that's the joy I get out of this. I love to share, I love to help people. I don't even think I'm gonna be selling these games. More of what I get out of this is the education. I think at some point, let's say, I don't know, 5, 6, 10 years down the line, I'm probably gonna strike out and start my own game development studio again. I've done it once. I feel like I wanna do it again, but I wanna do something interesting, I wanna do something unique, and I wanna do something excellent. And my goal is to take the time right now to train, to study, to learn, to get the ins and outs, the details of how this works and how to do it great. And then when I feel like I've earned my black belt, you know, that's when I'll go out there and do the thing. But what you get from now until then is all the learnings, all the lessons, all the advice, the process, and hopefully entertaining content along the way. You're gonna get that for free just by being a subscriber of the channel. So please go ahead and subscribe. That has been quite an intro. Now, when I do this, again, not just then, when I do that the second time, that will be the official start of the Devlog series for a game idea that I don't even have yet to make for VR, the whole shebang. Like as soon as I clap my hands, we get started. And let's say it's in 3, 2, 1. I feel like the first thing I need to do is a skill assessment and a resource assessment. One of the things that I learned in college from Alan Emmerich, probably my favorite professor who's taught me anything about game design, was vision equals resources. And this is probably the first thing I need to make sure not just me, but anybody viewing this channel understands. When I say vision equals resources, it's really just a reminder to respect the scope that you have the capabilities to actually achieve. So if it's your first indie game, you should probably be making a game called Don't Touch the Box, Don't Fall In. You know, something very simple with a single mechanic, just to kind of get you going. If you've never done it before, right, your first game shouldn't be, I want to make Overwatch 2 my own way, right? Like that's, when I was in school, everybody wanted to clone like World of Warcraft in their own way. Everybody wanted to take some of their favorite like comic book manga properties and make a game around it. And at that time, we were probably the shittiest, worst game developers that we would be in our entire lives. We were at the lowest point and we had the highest scope. Vision equals resources is super important. I want to take inventory right now of my own skills and what I have available to not only produce this series, but to actually make my first game in VR. So let's go through the resources and then let's go through the skill set. So I have a computer and a terrible wire setup, but I do have a computer high-end, capable of doing Unreal game development, capable of also running an Oculus Quest. Important piece of the puzzle is I actually have an Oculus Quest. You know, you're gonna need one if you wanna make games for Oculus Quest. Probably the most important part is I have a production space. I set up this spare bedroom in my house to actually just be my creative studio. So it's not as clean as it was when I first set it up, but obviously I have my space for computing. I've also created a space for doing 2D art over there. I've got a gaming space here, which allows me to play other people's games. Usually I just have YouTube or Spotify running. And most importantly, what I have here in this space when I take down all the photography stuff and push everything away, is I actually have a play space to play, test my VR stuff. And this was probably the most important piece right there. That empty space is important. You see, that space is important because if you're gonna make a VR product, and I actually don't know the game that I wanna make yet, I don't know if it's gonna be a game where you can just maybe sit in a chair. I don't know if it's a game where you need to move around a little bit. I don't know, but at least having the space to be able to play test other cool VR games or to make my own VR games that allow me to do movement-based or stationary-based, critically important to the success of this project. Extra things that I picked up for this project. I got a pair of wireless earbuds specifically made for the Oculus, so they just plug into the side of the Oculus and you get better sound quality. Sound design is one of the things that I'm huge about in regards to VR games being really good. And then I just got this Bobo VR here. I got this Bobo VR M2 headset. Basically, what this does is this replaces the standard kind of, I guess, like nylon-ish kind of strap with something a little more secure, a little more sturdy, and it also has some counterweight in the back. So it takes a lot of the pressure off of the front of the device and like it makes it feel a little more weighted properly. Turns your head into a proper gimbal instead of a front weighted gimbal. Properly balanced gimbal. Okay, and now we have the hard truth, the honest talk. Capabilities. So like I've said, I'm a video game designer primarily. That's where most of my career, most of my time in video game development has been, either level design or game design. And in making my own project, I've got to do all the other things too. So I'm just going to run down the list. Sound design, where am I? I'm interested in it. I've never done it. I think I know what sounds good. I don't currently yet know how to produce it. So I'm going to have to either figure that out or find somebody who can slide in and provide that need for me. 2D art, I'm strong in 2D art for what I'm trying to do. What I mean by that is I actually can draw and paint very well. I just don't do it professionally. And when I say very well, it's to my standards, to my needs and expectations. I draw all the time. I love to draw. I love to paint. Nobody pays me for it. I just do it because I love it. So if I do like a 2D sprite-based game, I should be all right. If I do anything requiring 2D like background painting or character designs or anything like that, environment art designs, cool, I'm good. We're good there. Let's see, 3D art. Now here's the big one. I haven't touched Maya to make 3D art professionally since I think I was working on a Rocksmith game. I did some buildings for one of the earliest versions. I think the first version of Rocksmith, when I was working at Killspace, we did some stuff for that game. I still haven't played it. Yeah, I had done professional environment art that shipped with the game. So I will say this, I'm just gonna be honest. Now the game has changed. I was doing environment art when normal maps was a thing. Like when that first came out, like Gears of War 3 first hit and everyone's like, oh, look at normal maps. This is the new thing in the industry. That's how long it's been since I've done environment art. So all that's to say, if I'm making a game that requires me to be the modeler and the environment art, it's probably gonna suck and it's gonna look terrible. So I'm probably definitely gonna either need to find somebody who can supply that for me or utilize something like a marketplace, like Unreal Marketplace, and buy or download the free assets there, which it has a ton. So I'm actually not very worried about that. Regardless of whatever type of game I may want to make, I'm sure I can find at least 3D environment art to support it. So I'm good there. Character art and animation. The reason why I'm clumping them both up together is because I feel like they're both very important if you want to make a game that's going to require characters, because then you need your characters to move and to have life and to be in the environment, like expressing themselves. And so it's probably going to be in my best interest to avoid that as much as possible. Luckily, since it's a VR game and you probably want to make something from first-person perspective, I can probably weave around needing to have a player character. I might need player character hands. So I'll have to figure that out when I start doing game design. But I might be all right not having a player character. I might be all right not needing an extensive amount of animations. But if this isn't like some sort of walking simulator or maybe like an arcade style VR game where you're doing physics-based things, if you're actually doing what I would consider like storytelling type of gameplay, I might need characters. I might need character animations. So we're gonna just say, on that one until I know what the game design is, then I'll probably have to tackle that one. But I'll say, if it comes down to it, I know people who are character artists who may be able to supply some stuff for me. I know that there are a ton of free top-level sci-fi kind of fantasy characters because of Aragorn. I think that was the name of the game. What the hell? The name of the epic MOBA game that they made that ended up shutting down, and then they made all the stuff for free. That alone, like I know that there's top level characters. I don't know if they'll run an Oculus. I haven't tried yet, but we'll find out. Materials and lighting. Now, what's really cool about this is thanks to how Unreal works, I feel like I can learn materials at least enough to what the Oculus needs and can take advantage of. I'm gonna be using, I don't know if I'm using Unreal 4 or Unreal 5 yet. I haven't decided on that, but I do know I'm using Unreal. And so with the material system, I'm good enough in materials that I believe that I can create what I'll need for any type of game that I'll be working on. Lighting, lighting, I always have this joke where I say, I may not be able to wash a car, but I can tell you if it's clean or dirty. And that's where I am in lighting. Like I can step into an environment and say, this is great lighting. I can step into an environment and say, this is shit lighting. And I may not be able to know how to replicate it myself, but I can at least identify what's good and what's not. So with that, I know that lighting and materials is going to be something that in this vlog series, I'm going to do a lot of studying there. You're going to see me finding tutorials. You're going to see me doing little test builds, doing little things where I'm training myself in making materials better and training myself in doing lighting better. Those are two areas where I definitely know that I feel confident that I can learn it and do it in-house. And I have the amount of time that I foresee this taking feels reasonable. To learn like top level character art from ground up today is, I would say, I don't even want to call it top level, but let's say passable. It's probably going to be a 4-year venture to go from like, haven't done it at all to I can make characters that somebody would buy. I'm going to assume that's like 4 years of daily diligent work, which is outside of the scope of this project. That would be the whole project right there. Just learning how to make characters good enough to like get an entry level job. It feels like it's maybe about a 4-year venture. Sound design, I'm going to try. I don't know, but I'm going to try. But materials and lighting, I feel like there's a reasonable amount of expectation there that just in doing this project alone, I can learn more about materials and lighting. So I'm going to keep that in-house. Programming. So on programming, luckily that I'm using Unreal and it has blueprints, which is a pretty fantastic visual scripting system. I'm actually really excited about that. That's going to give me the biggest and fastest advantage because since I'm making projects that are smaller and not necessarily multi-departmental, multi-personal team size projects, I might be just fine with doing the whole thing in Blueprints. Blueprints is pretty powerful as is. It may not run as efficiently as native C++ code, but it is good enough to use for prototype. It's good enough to make your own games, just within reason. And I think that there's no reason why I should look outside of Blueprints. But here's the cool thing. I've actually studied C++ already. I took AP Computer Science in high school. Thank you, Mr. Robeson, for AP Computer Science class. So I'm already familiar. I'm saying this as respectfully to engineers as I possibly can. I'm familiar with C++ to the point that if I needed to dive in and like re-reference and learn and get up to speed, I feel like I could within the scope of this project. Now, would I make the whole game in C++? Absolutely not. But I could tell if there was an advantage for switching 1 or 2 things into C++ code instead of using Blueprints natively. If I needed to for optimization purposes, maybe. So I'm gonna leave that one as a maybe. Like I can't tell yet until I make the game. But that's the full rundown of what comes to mind in regards to taking inventory on my project. Can I do the game design? Of course. Can I do the blueprint to at least make the game? Yes. Can I do materials and lighting? I believe so. Can I do sound design? I hope so. Can I do character art? No. Find a substitute. Can I do environment art? No. Find a substitute. Can I do 2D backgrounds and anything 2D? Yes, I believe so. Okay, that's it. All right, so let's talk about making a game. So what is the big idea? At this time, I actually don't have a game design idea, but I have a framework for an idea. And what I mean by a framework is I have some things that I want to explore. Let's call them boundaries. I don't want to call them constraints, but let's just say some boundaries or some fun targets. I think that what I would like to do is make a single player walking simulator kind of adventure game with some horror elements, especially coming after my last project. I have a lot of unrealized ideas. Has me motivated to want to do something like in the horror realm. It's not to be vindictive, but just for personal kind of satisfaction. Because of the last project that I worked on being a horror game, a lot of, I think, the fresh ideas or a lot of the time that I've spent over the last few years has been kind of thinking in that realm. And there was a lot of stuff that I really wanted to do on that project that we just decided against, couldn't do, wouldn't do, or because it wasn't someone above me's idea, that I want to express, that I want to be able to share and work on. And so I had some really cool stuff. I mean, if I got my way, I mean, every designer says this, but if I'd gotten my way more times than I did, I think that anyway, I'm not going to be petty. I'm just going to say this. I spent a lot of time thinking in the realm of horror, in the scary area, and I have a lot of ideas that I think should exist. And I think VR, this guy over here, I think horror on this thing is like peas and carrots. What is Forrest Gump saying? This is peanut butter and jelly. Horror on VR. Like if you actually like a horror experience, that is probably current, most immersive, and best place to experience it. Jesus. I gotta figure out, oh, you know, I'm gonna turn on the AC. Hold on. I told you guys this is unscripted, this is unfiltered, this is raw, this is authentic. Maybe a little production value on the editing side, but on the filming side, nothing is being hidden. Okay, so let's kind of rehash. Let's recap where we are in the process right now. I'm committing to making a game. I'm doing it because I want to grow as a game designer and developer. I want to make content for you guys that you can follow and learn. And I'm going to do it in Oculus VR because that's a new platform for me. I will be using Unreal because that's what I know. We've already taken inventory on what I feel like I can produce without help, areas where I know I absolutely can't produce without help, or what I'd be willing to at least use Marketplace or third-party assets for to achieve. The goal is just to make the game. I haven't talked anything about selling a game or anything like that. Like I just want to make it and put it out, and it could probably even be for free. I don't really care because the goal for me is the growth and obviously building this YouTube channel more so than it is like making a product. Making a product will come. Like I do know beyond the shadow of a doubt, I want to build my own game development studio again. And I'm making the 20-year bet that there is an opportunity to run a studio that does VR game development. Maybe right now it's very competitive because no one really has that killer app. Like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games you can think of that have just absolutely killed it. And you can think of probably a whole lot of games that have absolutely failed and probably will never do it again. And with that said, like I have to keep things in mind. Again, vision equals resources. My scope has got to be small. It's got to be realistic, which is why my goal is simply growth. And I think this is enough to do the first video. I don't want to end it on a sour note, but I do want to try to chop these up so that one whole part of the video makes sense. Like instead of jumping right into my process right now, that should be like my game design process, that should be its own whole video. Whereas the getting started, preparing, and making the commitment to do a devlog feels like, you know, a good time to put a bow on it. So I'm Larry. I'm gonna go play some games. And yeah, if you like this content, honestly, please give it a like. There's a thing about likes that I do wanna share. A lot of people say, oh, it helps the channel grow, etc., etc. But more than what it does for me, the creator, I wanna tell you what it does for you. Liking videos is literally your best way of telling YouTube what kind of things you enjoy and what kind of things you want to see more of. Again, YouTube is a big algorithm platform, and that is like your primary way of influencing the algorithm. So if there is content that you do want to see more of, and hopefully it's mine, giving it a like does support both of us. It helps my channel grow, but it also helps you find more content, either mine or content like mine, that is entertaining or similar. And so please, if that sounds good to you, give it a like, help the homie, but also help yourself. Help you, help me, help you. Help you, help me, help you. 2, maybe this content isn't for you actually, but you do know somebody who would benefit from learning about game development, especially from a professional. Please feel free to share the content. That's all I ask. Other than that, I'm gonna go play some games. I'm Larry. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Designer's Edge. Again, this is the devlog, so it's not the standard style, but I'm trying something here, 1, to help improve myself, and 2, I just want to see if this works and people enjoy it. That's it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.